Welcome to part two of the Shir Parshas Lecha Chatav Shinayin Vav and our post-Ma'ariv continued review. But first, just to be modia everyone that the Shir this week is Lecher, a tremendous Jewish hero. And I'll pass the mic over for a second to Lecha Leo, which is his father's yahrzeit.
Rabbi Pinchas ben Rabbi Shmuel Shmerke Alevi.
Okay, that's all he wants to say. Leave it at that. You can go out and get the movies. Today. Okay, so once again, we do a quick review of our review. Just what we've been looking for here is an understanding of Parshas Lecha that has so many different pieces, so much of the anticipation of later developments in Jewish history, as you would expect from a parsha that actually begins with a description of Yisrael, with the idea that it's Chela Goy Gadol, with all of the implications of that Goy Gadol, and with the necessary requirements for that Goy Gadol. Sorry. And yet we're given no background. We don't know why it was chosen. And we're given no insight into any type of structure in the parsha. And we also didn't even find, other than the clarity of the insight that there is a transition that gives us three periods of Avram Avinu. The Avram Avinu who is in Noach, who remains part before he becomes an Av Hamon Goyim, and before he becomes Av L'Chala Kula, as Rashi puts it. He is indeed an Av L'Aram, and his success is the success within the context of the Bnei Noach specifically. The Nefesh Asher Asu B'Charan becomes the ultimate achievement of being Modia, the Derech HaEmes, to the Shiva Mumis. And anybody, as the Rambam later says in Yuchas Shemitah V'Yavel, that there's Kol Echad V'Echad Mikol Ba'Yalam, has that koyach to become his Kaddish, Kodesh Kadoshim, if he's Perish, and he becomes Oimed L'fnei Hashem. Okay, so apparently he was Zeicha to actually be Machnis, as the Rambam says, thousands and tens of thousands into a movement that became his giving over a Derech HaEmes to the Olam. Then we have the last stage, which also transition is very clear, which is a new Darga that begins specifically after Bris Milah. The end of the period that we're in here is Nimol Imo, and then it goes on to talk about the new Avram and Vayera, who is Zeicha to this Darga of being able, first of all, to be the mocker of the Shiva of Sanhedrin, and that's the opening posik, Simon Lecha, and Yalokin Nitzav Ba'adas Kel, and then the union of his new Darga of Nevias, Ruach HaKodesh, in which he's capable of standing when HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to him, he no longer falls unconscious, which means he has a different madrega of a brain and a mind, so to speak, that can tolerate things that we never had. That we know. But as far as what happens here, the Seder of all the amazing issues that extend all the way to David HaMelech's coming, whether it's in terms of the Ayat or in terms of Sodom, and the transition that comes from meeting up with Shem and with Yisaicha to the Kahuna with Malki Tzedek, and then it becomes the Melech L'Chol Ha'olam and the Emek HaShaveh, which everybody is masking that he is the one, and which he's Zeicha to the Milchama of Eretz Yisrael, which is the Milchama that we find over here, that he has with what later becomes not only for Bnei Yisrael, but also for Bnei Yisrael, for Bnei Lot. All of this is Eretz Rephaim, that is defined over here, and the precursors to Amalek that is going to come, and all of the Ruchush Gadol that comes from him, and Eretz of Goshen, where Vayisham L'Goy, Har Grizim and Har Evo and Shem and the Tefillah for Dan, and the vision of the fighting of Yaakov Uvanav with the Umei Sa'ilam, becoming on his own to Har Moriah and to Eretz Yisrael and so on. Amazing madrigas, but we still don't have a sense of, in terms of how he handles the Nisyanis, and we saw with the different Rishonim, the Rabbeinu Bach and the Ramban, and the Radak and the Rosh. I mean, everybody has these unbelievable tainas of the Chatoim and of him and of Zorah, and how they handled the issue of going down to Mitzrayim. Bechlal, Shchaim Ramban is mamish part of the reason why we have a Yeridas Mitzrayim was so terrible, or the Radak's criticism of the awful way in which Zorah treated Hagar, or the sense of how it is that Avram Avinu could have, as the Ramban says, is a chet gadol, maybe the b'sheigeg, but that he should put his wife in such a position to be with Paro, and then his own hesitations about bris milah, and I mean that we don't see the Avram not before and be giving us information about what is the nature of the Bechira of Avram, and not afterwards. Not until next week's parsha we begin even seeing the things that all the midrashim have been telling us to take for granted, about his nachas zorchim and about his chesed and about. We only start hearing about it when he's already sort of cutting down, because he's not allowing everybody to pass anymore. You understand? We're going to start checking him out before they get in. We don't even know about his earlier life, which is dealt with and so on and so forth. Because something's very strange. Okay, so from there we went on to the need, in order to be able to be loymate from this parsha, which obviously, if it's defining the basis of the identity of Klal Yisrael, it must, or transition into that, right? I mean, to learn to be a ben bris, it means you have to go through this parsha first. It can't be that it's bereft of information on how to live as Yisrael. So okay, let's try to get into Avram's head from the point of view of Avram Avinu, instead of looking at it from the point of view of the Ramban or the Rosh or anybody. Let's try to see what would be, and what is the Torah giving us hints to be able to recognize what it was that he thinks that he's doing. It's obviously, it's not shaykh. All of these questions that we have, that they shouldn't be themselves the keys. Instead of our saying, okay, since we don't understand, let's reject what it was that he was doing, which leaves us without any limit at all, despite the fact that the Radak suggests maybe that's the limit, how not to be. It's very, very difficult to say that this is what the Oves and the Moisefur teaches how not to be, and this is why the Torah wrote this parsha. Okay? But if we're not ready to accept that, then we should look into the questions that we have. And we noted that, astonishingly, everything that Avram Avinu is told to do is something that he's already decided to do. To an amazing extent, that even to the point of where every supposed riddle about where's it going to be going, Lecha, or these were things that were over Pashat. This is where he was headed. This is what he was trying to get to all along. Even though Negba was his own understanding of what the nature of Abayda must become. His obvious response to the idea of Geri was a conscious determination of an understanding of the nature of the failure of Malchus in the breakdown of the productivity of the land and the Rav that was Baretz, which was once again repeated in the days of Elimelech, which was the beginning of the ultimate Malchus, which is Brumas to here, in the entire story of Lot and Sodom, which is the Malchus of that Malchus in the end, even to the extent of the Mitzvah Chalitza, which is here, Misru Chanal, the Michutat Chanal, which becomes the Zota Tu'udabi Israel and Lutz. And there's tremendous levels of gentle hints about where we're going. And that undoubtedly the Yetzia Mitzrayim B'Ruchush Gadol is the Teitzah of his Yetzia B'Ruchush Gadol. And the Torah actually defines all that he had X and Y and Z and so on. The fact that he was Zeichet Eretz Goshen here implies that the things that he's doing, he knows what he's doing. And that the idea of the understanding that obviously, though HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't tell you where it's going to be, he knows it's going to be Mitzrayim, because even Kissinger would have known it's Mitzrayim. I mean, it doesn't take an Avram Avinu to know it's Mitzrayim. And we understand where civilization is headed and where the future lies. It's I mean, it's something that someone can perceive years before. I mean, my own daughter, 14 years old, went out to learn Chinese. This is like 10 to 11 years ago, because she perceived at 14 that obviously the future of Biscar is in terms of China. So anybody who wants to be Matzliach has to know Chinese. But you went out to learn Chinese, became a fluent Chinese speaker. If a 14-year-old can do that, believe me, Avram Avinu can do that. It's no grace he can do, but to understand where the world is headed. You just need the fortitude and the clarity. I have to decide what I'm doing, where I'm going, when I'm okay.
It's very interesting. One brother went back to Greece, the other went forward to China.
Good. So we understand that it cannot be that the things that we've used, Thomas questions of which seems to be such a weak and wistful kind of gaguim to Yishmael. Even the Lashon of Lu is unbelievable. The difference between Avram Avinu's tzchok and Sarah's tzchok, which seems, no matter what pshat we say, seems to make no sense in terms of the aval, Sarah Ishtachar Yoledet. And his hanhaga, that the parish, it's not that the Bishonim question his hanhaga in terms of bringing Sarah down to Paro and to Avimelech. They question it. The Torah talks about those questions. Well, he couldn't figure out those questions. And after hearing it from Paro the first time and not answering him, so then he does it again, and this time he's got his answer all prepared. A brilliant answer. That really talks about clarity of why it is that I did something so horrific. Try to sell that to the New York Times. So, clearly all of these questions we said must be that they themselves are going to provide the solution to understanding what is really going on in Avram Avinu. So the first thing we looked at, and this is before we broke for Meyer, the first thing we looked at was the way the Rambam explains in the Pirush HaMishayis, the nature of the Nisayan of Lech Lecha, which we were questioning. What is that? What's big Nisayan if this is what he was doing anyway? So Adarab is being mechazik him. And we understood that amazingly the Rambam opened our eyes to recognize that the gerus of Avram Avinu is then. Shayatchila legerin is Lech Lecha. Gerus means to move, not to have a home. Gerus does not mean to convert. And that's literally what the words mean. And that he says beferish. That's what the first Nisayan was. Gerut. Shayatchila legerin. So it isn't a question of gradually arriving at an understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is true and honest gerut. In that gerut, all of a sudden everything changes, you understand? Because what that means is that ki ger yezar beretz lo lahem. And the fundamental relationship that Klal Yisrael has to Golus and to gerus, in which we think, wow, that's crazy. That's the violation of the whole thing. That's not the violation. That's the gerus. Golus is the gerus all along. So the Emach HaShecha Gadol Nofelet is the same Lech Lecha that I'm telling you they're going to have to go through.
It's like what you're doing,
They're going to do. Exactly. And that's his question. Because once we understand that the nature of gerus is as profound a change as the nature of scientific revolution, and that you do not change your paradigm coming hell or high water, you just make adjustments if you're in the same environment, and that's the point that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was making. If you think that you've reached the height of development and all of the tools that you need, you have now, I guarantee you will get nowhere. Nothing. Even. Your whole vision of life, is that you are Mr. Evolutionary Genius. That's your journey. That's what you believe. And I'm going to give you. We talked about this for the entire year on this issue. What's so great about these brachas that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is offering him? You wouldn't necessarily take all these brachas. You need a lot of money enough to be worried about. Not enough what you have. You need to be famous and have to put up with the newspapers and the Milchomes and everything that he has to do. What do you need it for? How many people want it? Yaakov Avinu is mavakish any of these things. Give me a beged, little piece of bread, a roof over my head, leave me alone. And when I say, any oilek, but Gedula, he said, not mavakish, things that are born, what do I need it for? For Avram Avinu, it's borrowed that this is the direction he's going anyway. Why? Because in a Darwinian world, that's what it's all about. Who wins the reproductive battle? Who has the resources? That's the rechush. Who has the shame, which is exactly what it is that you need to be the alpha male?
Howler monkeys.
Huh?
The howler monkeys.
Yes, yes. The howler monkeys. Yeah, but that's the issue. So, which means that even in terms of the ultimate surprise at the end of the parsha, it's also an adjustment to something that he's already involved in. He thinks it's just about kids. I'm going to give you better genitals. You understand that all of this is interrelated as the surprise of the issue in the parsha. So once you understand who Avram is and what he's looking for, the fact that bris milah should be the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu expresses the relationship is a given. If there's going to be some change, it's going to be genitals. It has to be. Because we're talking about this development. I'm just telling you one thing. That derech briato shel adam, you want to talk about evolutionary development? It's never revolutionary. And you need to be a revolution. And every jump, every leap in human development and human understanding is revolutionary. It's true that maybe all of the roots of everything are there before, but that last necessary escape from what it is that has destroyed your freedom, and this is exactly how the Rambam understands the whole thing. You need to be a freedom fighter, and a freedom fighter has to get out of the limitations of the life of pi. There's no way out of it. And this is that beautiful, which I've read before. There's a song by U2, which is called Lecha, right? And what does the song end with? I know it aches, how your heart it breaks. You can only take so much. You have to walk on. Leave it behind. You've got to leave it behind. All that you fashion, all that you make, all that you build, all that you break, all that you measure, all that you steal, all this you can leave behind. All that you reason, all that you sense, all that you speak, all you dress up, all that you scheme, walk on. Because there's no way to escape that nature of Asiya if it's within the context of Shlomo HaMelech puts it about Kokilas Ishmael. So the new development is to discover something astounding. Very painful. Even the words Lech Lecha are very painful. A friend told you after you worked for 70 years to basically do the things that you believe, this is the Aftal Reacha Kamocha, essentially. Reacha Lasavi, Zekol Kula. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Reacha V'Reya Avicha. I've been working for 70 years to be Mefarsim Shimcha Ba'elam, and now you're Elahei Haaretz, and so on and so on. You do me a favor, move on. You understand the pain of that reaction? Tell me something good, a little something good. You're not going to get anything in here. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Everything 70 years that I built, ridiculous. It's unbelievable, Nisai. To buy into that immediately and accept that and say, okay, fine. And I know you know the answer's already, genius. You already figured out Eretz Yisrael, yeah? Well, I don't want you to show me what you know. I'm going to show you what I know. You do it on my terms. You'll see it totally differently. You're going to Har Moriah, forget about Har Moriah. I'm going to show you where to go. So the more you think you know, the less freedom you have. That's what I'm telling you right now. So stop being so smart alecky, and you start to listening. You got to move out of here. It's extremely painful to hear that. It's painful. A father says that to a son once in a lifetime, maybe, in order to give them the biggest smack in their rear end to get them moving when it's necessary. And it's resented for years until that child becomes old enough to have his own and knows what needs to be done sometimes. It's an awful thing, and it has to be said at times. Very few people have the courage to say it. But when you say it, it's what indeed makes that child realize it's never going to work. It's never going to work. And that's what you mean. It's never going to work. You think you have all these, never going to work because I can make the slightest difference But what about all this work and all these degrees? It's garbage. Don't you understand? You're never going to get anywhere. It's an unbelievable thing to listen to. But what it leads to is a complete breakdown in his understanding of the nature of what it was he was looking for in Eretz Yisrael and what it was that evolutionary development calls for. Because you know what the question that we have to answer is, so why is Bris Ben Absarim here and not where it took place 5 years before? And the reason is because that's the biggest surprise. The Eretz Yisrael that you're going to be zocher to is not the Eretz Yisrael that you want, let me tell you. Because from the evolutionary perspective, the most fundamental thing, and I'll bet you think that's what I'm giving you, right? I'm giving you the rechush, I'm giving you the shame, I'm giving you the zera. Now you're gonna be competitive, you're gonna take over the world. Wonderful. But those things are only done in biological terms with territory. They cannot be done without territory. The territorial imperative is so central to biology that an organism in its own territory, I mean, look at the nature, the power of territory. I mean, bichlal, how across the globe, and what do you do for territory? Most amazing thing. Smell. It's all about smell. You piss on things, you lick things, but whatever it is, it's smell. That's the whole chazal over here. Lecha is your smell. Because shame is smell in terms of intelligence, in terms of awareness. I identify you exactly by your smell, much better than by your name. So you think that that's what you're ready to achieve, right? And I'm going to give you a land. What does Rashi say right up front? Kiman shaderach memayit. I mean, it's ridiculous. These are the brachas that the entire parsha, we pointed this out before. It's an insane Rashi. Since I'm telling you, Lech, look, I'm going to make up for it by giving you these brachas. The whole parsha is about these brachas. Li'elam vayad rechush gadol, because you're on the way. Ma'kadash is because people will know about you, so I need to make a war. So shame will come in. What kind of craziness is that? What Rashi doesn't understand the simple shot of the parsha and how it revolves around these three things. Rashi is saying, because what I'm telling you to do is the opposite. And that's why it ends up in Bris Milah. And that's what Avram can't take about it. It's the opposite of what you ought to be able to achieve as an evolutionary biologist. Because I need to take the world as it is, as real. And I need to build my life around that. I can't start saying, well, this tiny piece is wrong. And Rebbeinu Shalom, that's what you're telling me. Yeah, but it's only a tiny piece of foreskin. Come on, Rebbeinu Shalom, tiny piece of foreskin. A tiny piece of foreskin ends up in nuclear war. A tiny piece of foreskin means I know better than nature. It means that tiny piece of human foreskin is the Arabs, snip, snip, Amalek, snip, snip, the Aborigines, snip, snip, all the same snip, snip, it's just a little tikkun. What's the big deal? That's what you're telling me. What is doesn't matter. You're supposed to know better. So now I give up. I mean, so now I'm back where I started from. I'm worse when I started from. Is that something to build on? So therefore, the whole message over is you think I'm going to give you a land. I'm going to give you an anti-land. You're going to be on the road. What am I going to do with all these tools? And this is the most amazing thing. It's here where we suddenly discover the real meaning of Koach Ma'aseh Yama. Everybody else, Yaakov Avon of Yodam Mitzrayim, everybody else, Natati Le'esel, Seder L'Resh, everybody else starts off with the land, builds with the land. Well, guess what? The land is the last thing you're going to have at the very end of your history of development. It will emerge in territory. It's the exact opposite of the evolutionary process, which begins with land, and therefore, by definition, traps you in that land. Makes you always choose lichyot, and never to choose Bacharta B'chaim. Why would I choose Bacharta B'chaim when I have my wonderful ethnic identity and my places and my yeshivas, which is the opposite of Lecha? This is Gam Lelot Alechet Abraham. What does he want? Yeshiva. That's what he wants. Margaramlo Gam Lelot Hayoshev Bistam. I don't want to run around. I want a place, a nice place, with nice cars and a good economy and a nice climate and a swimming pool. Kikulo mashke, and lots of pretty girls to boot. That's part of evolution, isn't it? So kulo mashke is arayas. That's what everybody wants, no? I mean, that's what the height of the evolutionist Talmud of Avram Avinu, what does he really want? He wants to be Ayn Rand. Where else is he going to go but Stone? We're going to live in a world where everybody's going to do good for other people and destroy the development of human beings. This guy's a disaster. He turned into a religion. I thought he was a serious man. So the moment that we leave Mitzrayim, the going down part I liked, great, get his money and put him in his place. Okay, that's where he appears. When Avram's on his way down to Mitzrayim, there's no Lot. There's only him and Sarah and the household. On the way out of Mitzrayim already, there's him and Sarah and the household and V'gam the Lot, which immediately begins the next problem that Avram has. What's the next problem? Roeh, the riv between Roeh and Lot. And what is that problem based on? I want my land and I want it now. But Knani Vaprizi has Baretz. So what? God said it's ours, and Koach Ma'asav Higid Li'amo means he can choose and decide who he wants to give it to, and he said he's giving it to you. Says Avram, you jerk. That's the whole point. Is that it's not giving it has to emerge as mine. So when's that going to be? It's going to take more than 3 months? Take 3,000 years. Forget it. I'm going to Sodom. So Magar Amlo, Yeshiva Topistone. And as far as walking around, not only do I not want to walk around, I don't want to see another regel in town. So this becomes what kind of business? I got to meet other people now. And I got to worry about their opinions and about other ethnicities. It's ridiculous. May the best man win is what I always said. And so we go down to John Galt's Gulch, right here in Sodom, where the almighty dollar rules. Because I have some religious minhagim, which we need to be careful about here, but doesn't change my fundamental orientation towards din and so on and so forth. So here this Parsha Ba'at Mamish, exactly what it is, that it isn't. And this is what Avram understands. Okay, so then these 3 brachas are essentially necessary because I'm not going to be able to be what I thought I was. And the Eretz Yisrael that I discover is not the Eretz Yisrael that I thought I had. The lovely place where people plant in the right time. You ain't going to get no lovely place where people plant. There's not going to be no ish tachat gafno b'tachat einator. What do you say about that? And every time it happens, they get blown up. Why? Because they start believing that we have arrived. Moment. What's that? Yeah, beautiful. V'noshantem ba'aretz. Exactly. That's the v'noshantem ba'aretz. The astonishing, almost incomprehensible irony of people finding their comfortable place in Borough Park, Los Angeles, whatever it is. I mean, literally the feeling of, I've arrived and I'm comfortable. I have my yeshivas and the chinuch is better. And I want to get to Eretz Yisrael and I'm going to my children and I'm going to expose them to all of these things. I can't do that. The irony of it is beyond belief. And as time goes on, the irony gets more and more murgash because the difference between a vision of life of Koyach Ma'asav Higid Liyama, which means I understand now that the reason that I didn't understand Avram is exactly the reason I don't understand Meiser Merkava, as the Ramban points out. I don't understand Meiser Bereshis. I'm like a babe in the woods when it comes to understanding the basic facts of nature. I don't even know what the sun is. I mean, for thousands of years. I don't even understand what it means to say a sun rises and a sun sets, much less anything else. And literally, we're babes in woods. What is it exactly that we're going to achieve with these gradual developments? It's a joke. So that we should choose exactly that. And remember, this is what happens to Yochanan ben Kireah. So what the Kadosh Baruch Hu says. If you're willing to deal with the issues, I promise you, you stay here, I'm going to rebuild everything. It's unbelievable Nevi'us. We spoke about it in Sam Gedalia. Unbelievable Nevi'us. I'll be Beine V'lo Yaharos. I have changed my mind about this Churban. I want Eretz Yisrael to be perfect. I'm giving you the opportunity. Ridiculous, says the Yirmiyahu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said up front, but if you choose to have a nice car and not to hear the sounds of the airplanes overhead, and you say, enough, I can't take it anymore, it's too much tension, then I guarantee you, go ahead, settle down in Alexandria and watch what happens to Alexandria, because believe me, I will chase you there, and all the things that you're afraid of, that's what you're going to get, without any redeeming elements of it. This shouldn't be something to the tzninim b'tzidecha. It shouldn't remind people that this is the whole. Is that something to learn from Gerus? Is that something to learn from Avram Avinu? Is that Lech Lecha the most astonishing change in the way we assume? You understand? The way we assume is that it's the biggest mitzvah. You come to a place, you build institutions, you settle down, you make this to be the new Yerushalayim. This is what happens all the time. And this is the description of Rebbe Simcha, ultimately, of the Seder of the Goliaths. So, okay, so if that's the case, I mean, in a very simplistic way, but this is a much deeper understanding of the nature of Kayach Ma'asav V'Kibiyamai. Go figure it out. What do you mean you don't understand Lech Lecha? What do you mean Avram Avinu makes this mistake and Sarah made that mistake? What is that supposed to mean? You don't understand. No, and Ma'aser Bereshis, you understand. And if you wouldn't have had somebody to teach you the Ma'aser Merkava, so you would have sat there, the same Ramban that's saying that this is Avram Avinu's Chayte is the same Ramban that's saying, we can't understand any of this unless it's given you. So why bother writing it since it doesn't make any sense? But that's what Kayach Ma'asav is. That's how I understand Kayach Ma'asav. It's giving us the Prakim, Rashi Prakim. This is what you need to come to understand. So with such a revolution, your life is changed. And recognizing the difference between the territorial imperative, remember the implications of the antithesis of the territorial imperative. Because the same words, Kayach Ma'asav Higid Li'amai, is the words that appear in Haggadah Shel Pesach, which are the words that appear in the Knesset Eretz Yisrael, Yoshua, which are the words that appear in every person's Avos HaBikurim. Kayach Ma'asav Higi, Higadate Hayom L'Hashem Elokecha. Aram Yovid Avi, Yeridas Mitzrayim. Deep history. Why deep history? Why deep history? Because anything less than deep history is not touching on what it is that your freedom consists of. Well, what do you think it's about? It's about now, and it's about here, and it's about your current visions, and therefore for the past 4,000 years, everybody's redefinition of what happened in Mitzrayim and retelling and new narratives, it's all silliness, right? You need to understand that if you're nichnas to Eretz Yisrael, you're nichnas on those terms. This is the new vision of Kayach Ma'asav V'Kibiyamai. Ki hayom nichnasti la'aretz. This we go through every single year, so that you have to see yourself as not being anything settled at all, but as being recapitulating, rethinking, re-narrating, reliving, rediscovering, and creating a new future all the time. That is exactly what it means to be identified in that fashion. So someone who is identified as a Jew has no idea what Koach Ma'aseh V'Gibur. Because of that, he will have no interest in Yatsev Gvulot Amim either, by definition. The Goyim will not interest him. Why should they? My entire identity is ethnic. My entire identity is happy with what I have. Belief that the Torah is the source of truth. My Asiyas HaMitzvahs has been done for generation after generation. Kapasu Avotai. What am I supposed to be interested in? Whether the Goyim think I'm shayt about them, that Shabbat not shayt, who cares what they think, and I'm supposed to know the difference for the Shivim Purim, whether I'm going to bring a par for Vietnam or I'm going to bring a par for China. They're all a bunch of Goyim, whatever, you got to do your Avodah. This is Avam Goyim, and this is Ava Kol Olam Kulay. That's the exact opposite. Why? Because you never got to the point of recognizing the only way you can possibly be Lecha is because of the Yatsev Gvulot Amim L'Mispar B'nai Yisrael. If you don't understand that, how are you coming from Koach Ma'aseh V'Gibur? What do you know about the nature of evolution? How do you understand the difference of the Shivim? What different paradigms are there that you needed to get to, that you could build a vision of reality that is kol all of them, brings them all life, which is the whole point, brings a planet to a successful vindication and conclusion in terms of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon of Reishis, and you not only don't do that, you don't know it exists as something that needs to be done. It's astounding. So obviously the drive will be to be mityashev, wherever you are, to be holding on to an identity that, by definition, the more you hold on to it, the less it allows you to understand about reality. And you don't even understand the inherent contradictions of everything that you're doing to the fundamental part of Jewish identity. And you talk about Jewish identity, you make institutions for Jewish identity. The most fundamental things, you have no idea, literally worse than Goyim. It's unbelievable how such a thing is Shia. And yet, we have over here this, understand what it means to him. He knows. Avraham Avinu understands immediately the implications of that is I have to go to Har Moriah. How does he know that? Because Mayafu Pa'mayr Banalim Ba'kadir Bita Shel Avraham Avinu. Where those now lying? Oh, Liel Regel. Har Hashem Yira'eh. Hashem Anira'eh. Yira'eh, Yira'eh. This is a whole new mutual relationship that's constantly developing. He understands immediately. That's given to him. You understand? So that's what the Tchila Legerim is. That's why he's heading to Har Moriah. He knows that that's the Mayafu Pa'mayr. It's his Pa'amim in the beginning. You understand the vision that you're talking about. The mind-boggling awareness of the implications for the future and the past and what this means about the human species. And it's literally mind-boggling. It just leaves you breathless. And it's seen from that point of view, the handling the issues as if they're, moral primers for 10-year-olds. Is this a nice way to treat your servant? Is this a nice way to treat your wife? And someone is just outrageous. It's just crazy. You can't do that. So in the contrast of Lot to Avram, and we know these are, if you're going to continue, it's basically what Kadosh Baruch Hu was saying, you want to live here and continue to search, you can sit as a gorilla all you want and be the most sophisticated gorilla in town, but it's not going to get you any closer to Koach Ma'aseh V'Gibur. And that's what's happening. So all those who hold on to these types of identities, it doesn't matter who they are, what ummah they are. They become, by definition, magical thinking, anti-science, anti-anything that demands of them some dealing with issues that are not immediately in the here and the now. And it means that what it is that Avraham Avinu achieves in this transition is that he indeed provides a kiyum to all of that. The ultimate shock in these terms is bris milah.
The ultimate
Shock. The ultimate shock of, no, it's not good enough. The ultimate shock is bris milah, because basically what it's telling him is, yeah, that's true. Everything you thought was true isn't true. None of it. Why? Because the first thing that science has to make certain of is that it's not caught in a local bubble, right? And that's the first yesod of science. So whatever it is that we see, we have to be certain that this is the way things are, and not that there's something that is warping our experience that is local, and therefore we're concluding things that are just silly because it's not the way the universe is. So every single year, billions, tens of billions of dollars, literally, are invested in making more and more certain that our vision is not a local bubble in time or space. So what you need to do is you need to work out and look at the universe, how it is across its entire breadth from your point of view, to the point where it's impossible to go further because of the nature of light and space. But from your point of view, okay, you've got to work back to the beginning and to the furthest reaches in order to make sure that there's no thing that points to maybe some change took place recently, like 13 billion years ago, or maybe something's different about local space. In order to do that, you need to build the types of satellites and telescopes and detectors that cost you on an average $10 billion a year across the globe, at least, right? And in doing so, yes, manage to work your way back to the first 1/trillionth of a second after the Big Bang. But how do you know that nothing changed in the first quintillionth of a second? Or it could cost another $30 billion to get up a satellite with the kind of detectors that can get that far back in time. You need to be able to map the cosmos a lot better than just a few billion galaxies to know what things are like. You're going to need an order of magnitude more galaxies than that to get a better. Okay, so by 2020, we'll have the new space telescope that will be able to map more than those number of galaxies. We can get a real sense of where we are in the universe. To the man on the street, this is insane. I mean, can you imagine? Put that money into giving all the Schwarzes in Harlem money and everything, the whole world will be better. That's literally the way to think about it. From the Avram Avinu point of view, that's not the way to think about it. The way to think about it is that the human race needs to know where it comes from and where it's going. That's Koyach Ma'aseh V'Gilgal. If you suddenly discover the most awful thing imaginable, that the reason that you thought that it was such a good idea to do chesed was because you were caught in a local time bubble of 26 generations of Kili Olam Chazdo, in which the world made no sense, but it had to be mitzkayim, al pi dvarav shehakadosh baruch hu bichazdo. And that what we're really waiting for is rechokim mitzdaka, abir elev. You wouldn't faint? He did faint. Of course he fainted. So what does that say about everything that I think about everything? It's all local mistakes. Fine, so you want to go back to reality and go back to Koyach Ma'aseh V'Gilgal, and let's work it out from the beginning, but don't jump to conclusions.
Rabbi says this notion of Koyach Ma'aseh V'Gilgal referring to the unlimited potential of being
Everything that the Torah tells us is Koyach Ma'aseh V'Gilgal. Moshe Bereshis, as the Ramban points out, the entire development of the species. You need to see the way that things have changed, the mistakes that were made, the ongoing non-corrected mistakes. You need to be aware of all of that. And then you'll understand at the end how out of such a process emerges a Schus Teretz Yisrael, not because it's something external, but because it's yours. Because you've made it yours. Because there's this, not what he thought was the original external connectedness to the thing, but something which is as deep genetically as the nature nature of the earth that provides for those genetics in the first place. So the kalim that he thinks that he needs are just the beginning. Of course, that comes as a shock. You're telling me that you don't need an age self for that? It's horrifying. I mean, now I don't know anything about myself. I don't know. You told me I should make the choice. I give up. I don't know anything. I don't need to make a choice. If this is true, then I have to go back and look at everything that I did, and maybe it's all insane. This is extremely difficult, but this is called Esim Shabbatayra. Turning your back on Kol Esim Shabbatayra. Kol Esim Shabbatayra. You put in 35 years darshaning Esim, and now you're going to say, oops, mistake. What kind of person can do that? Usually you write one paragraph of text, and it kills you to change a word in it. You put in your entire life in a whole theory, and whoops, what can you do? That's the Kishem Shekibati Schar. It's an unbelievable darga, right? This is the ultimate shock of Avram Avinu. That means that this transitional period is something that he understood is absolutely necessary as a precursor to whatever it is that my ultimate awareness is. And in which case, let me ask you something. Do you think if he figured out the nature of ratios, which is what led him to Eretz Yisrael, and if he figured out the nature of Aveda, which is what led him to Har Moriah, and if he figured out the nature of civilization, its relationship to Geras and freedom, which is what led him to Mitzrayim, and if he figured out the nature of Rechush Gadol, which is what allowed him to get his money out of Mitzrayim while denying everything to Sodom V'Amorah. So let me ask you something. Do you think he didn't figure out that one last piece of the action, which is Kamaisa Eretz Mitzrayim? What strikes him about Mitzrayim? Is he really so stupid as to not recognize that the issue of sexuality in Mitzrayim is the issue? I mean, if the Torah could tell you this 1,000 years later, and you're supposed to still understand what it means to say Kamais Eretz Mitzrayim, and this was the height, as Chazal tells, the height of the sexual immorality of Mitzrayim is this period. So he couldn't understand that this is a striking aspect of the development of Mitzrayim. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Of course he understood that, which means that what he did was a direct affront to their sexual morality, which is exactly what it was. What kind of person, says Avimelech, Ma'asim asher lo ye'asu, screams Paro. This is outrageous. We are a moral country. I want to hear an answer from you, supposed spiritual leader, who allows his own wife to be put into a position which might destroy me morally. So all this is a coincidence, right? Or that's the whole point? Maybe it's the whole point. I'll tell you why he didn't give Paro an answer, and he did give Avimelech an answer. It's not because Avimelech asked for the answer, although the reason Avimelech asked for the answer is subsumed by what I'm about to point out. It's very simple. The difference is brought out in the pasuk. What happens after Paro gives him back his wife, and unaccountably, in all of his anger, doesn't say, would you please give me back all the gifts that I gave you, you rotten no-goodnik? Instead, as the Medrash puts it, says, take your wife, keep all the gifts, I'm signing it all over to you. And walks off with half of Eretz Mitzrayim too, with Eretz Goshen. What happens? Vayetzav alav Paro. What's the Vayetzav alav Paro? Get out of this country as fast as you can. This is no country for pretty girls, as Rashi says. These people have never seen a girl like this in their life. They're going to rape her in 2 minutes. Get her out of here. I can't be responsible for you in this country. Avimelech, on the other hand, says, settle down. I will issue a government decree. Anybody who starts up with this man or his family is under sentence of death. Don't worry about a thing. That's why Abimelech got an answer and Paro didn't get an answer. Paro didn't get an answer because he didn't need an answer. All you would have done is stare at him. Right. That's all. Because it's obvious, as you yourself are about to tell me, that if I stay 10 minutes in this country of great morality, I'm dead. Why am I dead? Because everybody's so moral that they will kill me in order to get the wife. Would I take an Ashes? You want to look at the difference? Yes. David HaMelech is shattered not by Ashes, but because of getting rid of the husband. Navot HaYisraeli is shattered not because Achav wants an Ashes. Oh no, he wants to get rid of the husband, so to speak. That's the Haratzach, the Gam Yarashta, so to speak, right? Same thing Isha said. So the idea as it is that Avram is doing is exactly what Bar Kapara does. Exactly the same thing. Bar Kapara is dealing with, of all people, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, right? Rabbeinu HaKadosh knows about sexual morality, I'm assuming. I mean, he wouldn't even look at his genitals. It's one of the reasons it's called Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Somebody comes to with a Shiloh and Bris Milah, he says, look, I never looked at my own, I ain't going to look at yours. But this is very holy. So what's the story with Bar Kapar? You all know the story of Bar Kapar. It's a mad story. So what does he do? He tells, and Rebbe doesn't want him at the wedding because he knows he's a troublemaker. So he's marrying off now the Bar Alasa, multi-millionaire. He comes to Rebbe Shimon Bar Rebbe. Nice Mechutton that we've got over here. So what does he do the day before? He says, you think I'm not going to be at the wedding. I'm telling you, not only am I going to be at the wedding, okay, I am going to have your daddy, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, dancing around with me and your mother. So I'm going to be there, B'rikuda Davuch, B'rikakni D'imech. So this is, wow, Ben Al-Assad, the Chosim of Rebbe's and Usher Gadol. Fine. There they are, by the Hilul of Rebbe Shimon Bar Rebbe. How am I going to achieve this? You wait and see. Comes Bar Kapar to the Chosim's Tish with Bar Alasa and the Rebbe and everybody else, and he says to them, what do you think, oh great moralists, about sleeping with animals? Sleeping with animals? Where's this guy's taste? What kind of thing you talk about? What do you mean? State in the Torah, state, Tavlin, Tevelu. What is that supposed to mean, Tevelu? You have an explanation what it means? It means nicht good. Everything that they say is what sense does that make? Okay, so, no, it's all right to tell us. No, I'm not going to tell you. Get up, he says to Rebbe. Get up and dance with me, right? And then I'll tell you. Okay, Rebbe can't let this go on. So he gets up and dances with him. This is like, he never gets up and dances on him. For me, you'll see. Watch what happens. Fine. Comes with this next question. All right, Rebbe, sit down. Now I got another question. What do you think about homosexuality? Was meint das Teva? Meint das nicht gut? I don't know, because you think that, and you feel it. You really think HaKadosh Baruch Hu has like sexual mores, and it doesn't like, seems inappropriate, like, it seems more appropriate, sticking body parts into other people's, the whole thing is disgusting. This is disgusting. That's not disgusting. It's all disgusting. What's the difference? And they're talking. Finally, the Gemara says, Ben Al-Assad got up and disgusted, walked out of the chasna. I can't take it anymore. He spent $20 million on this chasna. He walks out. It's impossible. And each time, Bar Kapar, Rebbe's got to dance with me before I'm going to tell him. What is the pshat? Rebbe has to dance with me. If he doesn't dance with me, Because the whole point is, Mr. Paro, you have all the answers, don't you? How could I have done such a thing? You idiot. Your phoniness. All of this talk about your sexual morality, it's absolute garbage. You don't know what it's about. You're ready to murder in order to persuade yourself about how holy you are. You think that we have hang-ups about this issue. Go try to take something that's not yours, you fool. Okay, I'll send the army to get you out of here alive. You think this is an exaggeration. So what happens now? Exactly the same thing happened this year, a year ago. The Arab Spring. And now hundreds of thousands of people come together to celebrate the real morality of Isha Yosher Einav Yaseh. It's all about Yashrus and women's rights and so on. And there's a CBS reporter filming the whole thing, and she's pretty, and they all go rape her, and that's exactly what they do on the spot in front of the cameras in the middle of the Arab Spring. Think things have changed much in Mitzrayim? So here's Paro arguing for the Arab Spring. Says Avram Avinu, listen, we don't need CBS. Get me out of here. So, since Avimelech was willing to let him stay, so he said to him, listen, it's all beautiful. It has nothing to do with reality. It's morality shel chinam. In Yiras Elokim in this place. The guy comes into town, you start asking him, so who's the broad? And how is she related to you? This is the first thing that you ask a guest coming into town. I know, I don't belong here, I'll tell you that much. What am I going to answer? So he's dealing directly with exactly the issues that he needs to deal with. This is not a joke that he's playing. This is exactly what the Torah was telling him in advance of Gary Ezra. But it means that your response and your leadership of the world is to get them out of chesed lumim chatas, to get them out of morality, she'enam oisin elo li'izgader b'ay, and so on and so forth. It's all meaningless. Teach them what it is to live in a world in which, Yatzeh v'lo tamid, l'mispar b'nei Yisrael, the schus of b'nei Yisrael, the chiyas of b'nei Yisrael. This is what's going on here. Okay, so this, you get into Avram's head, you begin to understand that things indeed have a real meaning in all of these things that he's doing. Now,
I think the Lord was saying that she was his sister was just to bring him to create this conflict, which would bring out this difference.
no, he said, listen, she is my sister. So what? What did that mean that she's my sister to you? It means I told you what you wanted to hear. That's all it means. You knew that it meant nothing. I didn't say anything wrong. She's my sister. That's the whole point. I'm not excusing what I'm saying. I'm pointing out to you what a phony you are. All I needed to do was figure out what you wanted to hear. And you were not going to ask another thing because you didn't want to ask another thing, did you? Don't give me your reports about what a wonderful tzaddik you are. A wonderful tzaddik, you don't just say, does it have a hechsher? You look at the hechsher also.
What's the line you tell me about, right?
Right?
What's the line you tell me about, right? How does that look at this?
That's the Ruch HaShgoda. That's exactly the point. You will be motzei chen b'eineihem by getting out of there and destroying them. That's the pshat. That's exactly what he does.
It's not parallel.
It's not just a parallel. It's the roots of it. It's the source of it. It's not an understand. This is what it's amazing. So now, here's the most amazing part. This is absolutely stuff. The wistful tefillah of Lu Yishmo Yichya Lefaneh. Avol Sarah Ishtecha Yoledes Lecha Ben. And then, Lishmo Shematicha. Understanding, yes, no, what? You're not willing to say what you want. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not willing to go ahead and, what does it mean, Shematicha? The hints? Shvat to their hands. But there's something new here. There's this Lu Yishmo Yechia Lefanecha is a whole new way of looking at reality. He gave the man a son, so let him keep his son. What's the big deal? But he has to be Machalish, the Lu Yishmo Yechia Lefanecha. Did anybody say he wasn't going to be Yechia Lefanecha? I said, I'm going to give you a son, Yitzchak. I just said, what are we talking about? The Lu Yishmo Yechia Lefanecha. I don't get it. Nobody ever threatened Yishmael. Where was the implication that Yishmael would not live, B'chlal? That you have to worry about Lu? Oy, if only. Unless it means mamish. Look, I don't believe a word you're telling me about this Yitzchak jazz. Can we just please keep Yishmael? It's fine. I mean, then it's horrible. Then there's no answer to the difference between the two, right? Now, how do you explain the wistfulness? So Rabbi say, I believe that's the key to understanding the entire nature of the parsha. It is wistful. Basically, what Avram is saying is, look, I understand that what you're talking about is a whole new world, a bris that's going to be, and you're going to be making the bris with Yitzchak, and everything is going to be different after that bris milah. And I've had a rough couple of years. And I put in 70 years in a life that you told me to forget about, to move on. Is it possible that something could survive? Something could survive that would allow all of that to be meaningful. That's what I want to know. Meaningful. Is it possible? If only, I understand that everything's going to change. And I'm makabel that change. But I don't want him to survive. I want him to be chai, lefanecha. Is that possible? Or it all has to be yored l'timayon? Of course it's wistful. Because in being makabel on myself right now, the tremendous shinui of bris milah, the tremendous shinui of Yitzchak, with all that it implies in terms of din and in terms of Aveda, which he understands from the beginning. Elohe Abraham, Elohe Yitzchak, I understood all of that. I know what's coming, and it's not going to be easy for me. I understand that. If I understood this, I understand that. But is there any way that somehow all of that life, all of those memories, everything that I put in, the beliefs that I once had, can they be translated into something that can live? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the lashon of aval. Aval is, look, you're talking about truth. You're talking about changing the reality. You understand. We're both on the same page. That's clear. That's the given. That's truth. That's aval. You want to talk about being able to create a transitional stage that will provide for the world that you had created and you had built.
It's 22 hours.
That it shouldn't be Yorek L'Timayon, and you want that to be Ishmael. I hear you. And because of that, when he initially is saved because of Be'er Lachai Ro'i, that's the Lu Yishmo Yichya Lefanech. That's exactly where it comes from. That's the chiyus. But it's a chiyus that is predicated on being part of a world that's not part of Koach Ma'aseh V'Gibel. It's part of a world that exists as a local moment of space-time. Therefore, a malach speaks and disappears. If another statement needs to be made, we need to create another malach. If he believes something, it has to be Basher Husham. It's just as it is right now. And everybody's screaming, why just as it is right now? He's an idiot. He's going to cause so much damage. That's irrelevant. What Avram wants is something that can live outside of all of that and yet be part of a world in which they will be Gerim, so they become nomads. Specifically, not to have a specific place. And indeed, among all the Ummas on the earth, it's only the Arabs who have a concept of an Ummah which is not linked to territory. It's amazing, other than Klal Yisrael. Wherever they go, Yoda Bakol, they take over everything. Assume that everything is theirs. It's an unbelievable anhaga. And define things ad hoc, always. And relate to the entire world ad hoc. Temple? What temple? Oh, says the New York Times. Yeah, gee, we never thought of that. What temple? I mean, it's just beyond belief. The Palestinian people who have been here since, you know, the beautiful story of what's his name of Tzvi, what's his name? The guy that does all the Arab, flew out of my head. There's a famous Maisa recently. I forgot it. It'll come to me, this name. So he was giving a lecture in the university, in which he always lectures on Arab-Israeli relations and so on.
Kedar?
Huh?
Kedar, Lecha?
No, not Kedar. Yeah, something of it. It'll come. If you don't say anything, it'll come back to me. Anyways, he gets up there and he says, you know, the Jews have a tradition that when Moses was bringing them into the Holy Land, he came to the Jordan River and he went to be Tevel in the Jordan River. The first thing that happened to him in coming into the land of Israel was that Palestinians stuck up and stole his clothes. The place, Mamish screams and yells, disgusting. There were no Palestinians at that time. And what are you talking about? What kind of crazy tradition is that? He says, thank you. I closed my lecture. He walked out on the stage. In other words, when it's Nagaya, you also know that there are no Palestinians. But it doesn't matter. It's not a kasha. That was yesterday. Not today. Obviously, we were here before the Jews.
So why would everyone want such?
Because it's necessary in order to provide a kiyum for those who can't make the transition. Lamasha. If it wouldn't be for Yishmael, then even his own children from the next stage, Esau and the West, would have been yored into the opposite of Lech Lecha. The yeshiva became so profound that they were already predicting the end of history, right? Our paradigm, our way of life, and so on, is the way of the entire world. There's nothing left to fight about. There's nothing left to discuss. All of a sudden, who comes around? Yishmael. What's their interest? Monsieur Nefesh. Reality. Avodas Hashem. What are you talking about? What? It's all about your business. What happened to Tefillah? What happened to Tzedakah? What happened to Chesed? What happened to Amunah? What happened to Milchama? Yan Dam Sameta. You're supposed to love them. The world is supposed to develop and change and learn to be Oved Hashem. And how come nobody wakes you up at 4 a.m. singing Allah Akbar? Seriously, what do you mean? These are amazing things. They have all of your intellect. Makes no erosion on me, your intellect. Move over so I can bow down in the middle of your parking lot. You'll sit and wait for me.
Remain square.
Yeah, of course.
You go by the mood, and the mood is always changing. There's no.
Maybe that's also part, yeah. That's sure. Anyway, it's an amazing thing. So that means that it's possible, because of that, to have a parsha in which instead of the Yerush of Eretz Yisrael, you have the Kivush of Eretz Yisrael. What happened to Karach Ma'asav Hikid Liyama? This mamish, it exists side by side. La halacha. This is how the Rambam Paskins. So Yerusha Rishayna, the Rambam Paskins, is B'Telem. Kedusha Rishona is Betela, because the Yerusha Rishona was because of Kibush. But anything mechanical, which is the early stage of Avram's evolution, is only as good as mechanics. The moment the mechanics stop working, so do the achievement of those mechanics. Therefore, Botla Kibush, Botla Kedusha. Moshe, the din of the Beis Hamikdash, the Hara Moriah that he was looking for, is not Botla. Why? Because the Kedusha didn't come through Kibush. It was Kedusha Shchina, says the Rambam. Kedusha Shchina isn't the Torah. So Melo Mokum HaMikdash retains its Kedusha, Eretz Yisrael all doesn't retain its Kedusha. That means you have these two completely different dargas. One which is post-Lecha, and which is indeed coming to Har Moriah. The other one, which is the Kibush of the Rephaim, and so on and so forth, which is the first darga, which leads to the most important implications. First of all, the implication is that the Lu Yishma Yechia Lefanecha means that the historical perspective that we have, the ability of Klal Yisrael to be Zocher, to a Koch Maisav Higit Li'amo without the next stage of Avram Avinu's development. You don't happen to, you gave me that book. That book is just amazing. Chaval that I meant to bring it and I forgot. I bought one already from Amazon. I bought one already. What it means is this. Take a look at the implications of the historical perspective. It's very, very difficult for just a regular person to have a real sense of what it is to be a Ben Yisrael from the point of view of Avram Avinu, what he's going to have the dark of Ruach HaKodesh. Is he going to be able to be so mizdabek levekov that he's going to really be able to mekayim the sheish mitzvahs tvinyas? He knows all the time that Hashem Echad. And he knows all, and with an awareness, and he knows all the time that Einod Movadai, that he understands. And Av and Yira, these are the basic requirements. As the Rambam brings, La Locha Nochas Tshuva, right? This is what you're mechuyev. There's no games. And yet, on the other hand, Avram Avinu has provided in Lech Lecha a different identity, in which what's required is just the knowledge of that and the understanding that you cannot replace it with something else.
What?
You cannot replace it with ethnic or religious identities. If you understand that, then you end up with the most amazing picture. Because what happens is you look at the reality of our times from the point of view of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you say, what a wreck, what a disaster. That's what you say to yourself, right? But if you take a look in terms of the historical perspective, and you remember the Harninu Goyim, Amai, what was that mean, that Harninu? As Rashi says, the Goyim say, it's amazing. These guys must have known something all these years, all these millennia. How did they put up with everything that they put up? Indeed, how did they put up with everything that they put up? So you have all of that. I was just talking to Naftali Shiv. He came from England last night. So last night Friday night we ate together. And when he tells me the hardest thing for him was speaking to survivors. Why? Because, he has this whole movement of the Yeshat Torah, and it's all like an understanding. What's the Darga, Ramuna? What are you thinking? And how are you explaining the fact that these horrible things are going on, and so on? And I figured, I'm going to speak to all of these people, and I'll get an insight. He says, I don't know, they're all stupid people. He says, they have no idea. I asked them, what are you thinking? Not thinking anything. That's the way it is. I have to understand what I need to understand. But I'm thinking that this is all I'm going to learn from a survivor. What is this? I've spoken to 300 people at least, he says, survivors, I guess. And it took me so long to recognize that it's a completely different phenomenon than anything I thought. That this thing that people call Emunah Pshuta, or whatever they call it, is a different thing. It's just a different perception of reality. It's not something that you explain to people. It's how you see the world. That darga of Koyach Ma'asav Higi B'Yamai, that darga of Gerus, is not to be invested in all of the things that fools invest in. And that, surprisingly enough, when you take a look at the reality of Eretz Yisrael, sorry?
That's how they were able to start new lives and pick up from scratch and whatever.
Yeah.
They lost everything.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. No, you lost 15 kids, so you make another 15 kids. You lost one life as a doctor, so you make another life as a beekeeper. Well, what's the difference? That's not what I am. But it's shocking to people who are in it because they fall apart. Because that was my life. I mean, people nowadays, they chas v'sholom lose a pregnancy, when it's 40 days old. It could take them 20 years of therapy to get over it. I'm not joking. Literally. It's a madness. Can't get over anything because I'm totally invested in everything that I believe I was meant to have. And all the questions, and why me? And how do I? So that worse than whatever disease they get is the insane mentality that requires decades and decades of treatment for them to be able to get up in the morning. And contrast that, and this is what the Goyim are saying. What in the world did they know? What did they see of reality that we just didn't pick up at all? So what allows people to live in Eretz Yisrael, to be happy, to carry on, not to allow anything to shake them? And as Ben Gurion says, you have to believe in miracles, even though there's no God. You have to believe in miracles to live here. How else can you live here? So what are those miracles? Those are the level of the miracles of Lecha, of understanding that there is a completely different way of relating to life. And that's the nature of a Yerus that takes the species seriously. That talk about Yisrael being an Or LaGoyim, not because they're religious, not because they're moral, but because they're human. And to continue to insist that Adam Aten is real, that this is an Ama Nifchar because of Yatzei Geulat Amim L'Mispar B'nai Yisrael. And the more tainas that the Umas Ha'olam have about our horrible morality and about how we are the worst among all, the more powerful is the sense of how separate it is, how much better it is, how much more evolved it is, how much the world would be different if only there would be a way to deal with Hoya Omrim Lara Tov V'Latov Ra. It's unbelievable. So that from the point of view of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is an unbelievable thing. To see people that just lost 12 million people in war, right? Population never rebuilt. 6 million is only concentration camps. The total loss of Jewish people is over 12 million people.
Really?
Yeah.
Where were these people?
Just general starvation, movements, populations, and so on. 12 million people were killed.
Jews?
12 million Jews were killed. 150 million people were killed. 12 million Jews were killed. So to be able to stay, okay, so now we're in Saras because there's a gay pride movement. So obviously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to destroy Eretz Yisrael. The loss of understanding, of magnitude, of what is really going on, and in which all of the issues that are misaviv are issues that are built on I will not buy into something that I don't see as real, it's no different than Avram Avinu running down to Eretz Mitzrayim. It's not that there's something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, oh, so it was all about you're keeping the mitzvahs of the Torah and not keeping the mitzvahs. That's not the mitzvahs of the Torah. So you learn in 10 minutes to keep the mitzvahs of the Torah. What's the big deal? The first Nakud, and this is exactly what happens to Avram Avinu. Before we get to Bris Milah, the difficult stage is learning what Klal Yisrael already knows. That's the most difficult stage. This interim stage, which goes hand in hand with Yishmael on one side and Yisrael on the other side, that interim stage for the simple people is what all of us have met so many times in our lives. Whether it's a simple cab driver, or the simple Maaseh Chesed of hundreds of people coming to be able to do this and that, which is required for this particular moment, or this particular chayal, and so on, which doesn't share any ethnicity and any religious beliefs or anything else, but shares a particular sense of what it means to be a human being, on a completely different art. The pride. And indeed, it turns out, in terms of asking people a Maaseh, what are their beliefs? As far as their belief in mitzvahs, shvach. Beliefs in Mashiach, shvach. Belief that you're an Am HaNivchar, unbelievable high percentage. It's a tiny percentage that don't believe that you're an Am HaNivchar. Nivchar by who? By what? That you're chosen people. That Am Yisrael is different than any other Am, and Am looking at immense percentages, and so on and so forth. Because that's this parsha. That understanding of the nature of Gerus and not to buy into the things that lead people to settle down, leave, go to Chutz La'aretz, try to get a better life. There is no better life. It's amazing that most people don't believe that there is a better life. They wouldn't take that life if you gave it to them. Where does that come from?
The high satisfaction of life.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Among a world with the amazing lifestyles and incomes and so on, that this should be from the most happy countries in the world, fighting all the time. What does that mean, Bichlal? It means that there's a hakora of the nature of the nitzchias of the fact of creation, and of the need to be part of that and to be an Adam who wants to create and not just be some kind of absurd ethnic stupidity. That's what it means. And the rejection of mitzvahs often comes from the fact that the only mitzvahs they see are ethnic stupidities. And the rejection of the moralities and the sexual moralities are because what they see is nothing but Christian beliefs, in which toevot become toevot because I don't like them. And none of that is meant to be real in terms of Yisrael anyway. This is not what it is that is the mitzvah satira. This is not the context that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the mitzvahs in. Why is that the essential issue, Bichlal? Does it really make a difference? And if people keep mitzvahs on that madrega, it matters so much. You're so sure about that? You would tell a person to drop his whole lifestyle, everything, she should become a yeshiva bacher. You would take that achrayas. Who would take achrayas like this? What's so good for him to be a yeshiva bacher? No, we still do mitzvahs. Those aren't mitzvahs. Those, yeah. The Yerosim is this is Adoshim Belumada, and that's going to be the mitzvahs. That's something that doesn't give away lava. That's the mitzvahs. Like Rava said, listen, I'll tear to start to get him, but you don't need to go to hell twice. You're going to live in this world, and you're not going to have any fun, and you're not going to get any schuz for Elam. You might as well have fun. This is Mamish what he says in the Gemara. So you wouldn't tell most Kiruv organizations exactly that. Let people enjoy life. Leave them alone. Right? Your before pictures are always much nicer than your after pictures. I tell this to them. I'm willing to give money if you'll switch the pictures around. I will be a dedicated supporter. Turn all these ridiculous-looking people into these good-looking kids that look like they're driving on their bikes and running around in the street. That's what I would like to see. How does she know what I'm saying? That she's already calling to come on. That's the problem with broadcasting, you know. Wives start calling and get out of there. And so this is an amazing, it's mamish. What it means is if you want to be zoich to that dag of Ruach HaKodesh, and this is what you're meant to be. Call yourself B'nai Nevi'im. B'nai Nevi'im means that they're on the path to Nevi'im, the Rambam says. This is the given. This is what it's for. This is what Kabbalah Saftara is for. This is why the Bryce of the Pinchas Ben Yair ends with Ruach HaKodesh with Tchias HaMesim. It's a Davar Pasha. But that's what it's for. It's not dreams of grand achievements. That's what the simplicity is. That's what was so beautiful about that book. And the description of a great nephew of his uncle in Hungary. I've never seen a better description of what it is to be a Ben Yisrael. I doubt that this guy's the gardening columnist for the Washington Post. I mean, I doubt very much. He's particularly from a Yid. He certainly doesn't look like one picture. I've never seen a better description of what it means to be a Ben Yisrael. In terms of his achrayus for my separations. I wish I had it here because I don't want to paraphrase it because it's written so powerfully. It's a description of what he saw of his family. That he saw, I know, remember those words. There were 1,000 words. I know I'm not going to say what he said and misquote it. It's a book about Debrecen and about it's called When the World Was Whole. Whole, W-H-O-L-E. That's just not to be believed. This guy understands what it is to be a Jew. He talks about the thousands of threads, which every single thing that this person did was creating an octus of complete integration of life in every moment with the totality of the world and his responsibility for everything in history. He even understood. He talks about that this person, it's like you watch him and you're looking at a double helix that includes all the way back Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. This is what he is. This is his genes. This is exactly what's coming out in him. That's not a thought. These are his genes. And then he talks about even, Asher Mefachei Tami. He says this was a man who realized that if you misaddress a wedding invitation, you could destroy the Beis Hamikdash. That's how he touches up the story of Kamsa Bar Kamsa. Yeah, that's the level of responsibility. You don't misaddress a wedding invitation because things make a difference. Everything makes a difference. Every act that he has, the entire world, he felt is living within his every moment. Why does a guy like this, a gardener, describe what a simple Yid is? You know, this guy was a businessman. He wasn't wrong. This is what Avraham Avinu achieved here. But if you want to reach that darga, you have to first go through this step of this transitional parsha. And that means letting go of all that's in that U2 zone. You have to let go of it. There's nothing to do. You will not get anywhere if your life is defined by a context that allows you nowhere to go. And that first moment of gerus, to be makabel on yourself, gerus, is the only way in which you can ever be free. And only once you have that freedom, then does it turn out that your thoughts are not constantly revolving around the ridiculous assumptions that you make about yourself and about your needs and about your psychology and about all the absurd things that go round and round in your head all the time. Because no matter what it is that you will understand, you'll never get beyond those round and round things in your head. So this is why there was no way to relate to Avraham Avinu without going through Lech. I'm going to say, go get your bris milah now. For what purpose? So you can have some weird sexual focus in your religion and be looked at as a nut? It's an amazing thing how much it takes to be able to first do in order to be able to reach that target. You're telling me that every person is b'chliyav and avas Hashem, that every person can actually open up a siddur and daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and know that he's Eimed B'fnei HaShechina. Not if he lives in his own head all the time, obviously. Because then, as the Rambam says, any resemblance between his thoughts of God and God are purely coincidental. That's just a beautiful way he puts it. There's absolutely no one-to-one correspondence between his thoughts and between anything that exists outside of his thoughts. And therefore, there is no one more distant from God than those kind of people. It's an amazing statement. So all these people running around talking about God day and night, Baruch Hashem and Bli Neder and so on. There's nobody more rochah from reality than that.
He talks about what people, you know?
People that are always talking about God and how much they think about God, and always saying Baruch Hashem, Hashem. They always have something to say about, Hashkocha. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful. That's typical thing. Those are the people that are completely rochai. Because they have there's nothing in common between what they call God and something that actually exists. So that is Richer. Again, be close to something in your own brain. It's nuts. That's exactly what Lecha is about. Is to be able to first achieve that darga. And not being locked into that, then we can start talking about real kiyum mitzvahs, real identity, the real meaning of a sexual identity in terms of Brit Milah, the understanding of what it means to be responsible for a world and to be committed to reproduction and to have a child with your wife and so on and so forth. Otherwise, I'm Bar Kapora talking to Rebbe. Would you like to dance? No, I don't like to dance. Okay, so tell me what your brain knows if you don't know how to dance. And you end up getting ready to dance with you. You know what? I need to know this. Okay, I'll dance. You think he didn't realize how silly it was that he was dancing? But that was the point. I want you to get off of the high chair and start dancing.
To show you how little
You need to dance, okay? You don't need to be sitting up there like Rabbeinu HaKadosh and so on. You need to dance, kick up your legs a little bit. Come on, Rebbe. It's an unbelievable Gemara. The chutzpah. You'll see. I'm going to get him to dance. It's crazy. This guy's getting him to dance by asking dirty questions. And he doesn't know an answer. So, okay, if you want the answer, you got to dance. Obviously, that means that I'm telling you the reason you don't know the answers because you think you have all the answers here. To be choshev to dance. You dance, and I'll tell you. This is Bar Kapora. Ultimate Bar Kapora. His whole life is like this when he's driving Rebbe crazy. It wasn't just this one time. The whole point is, you don't laugh enough. Take yourself too seriously. Okay, but I'm not letting you into the house if you make me laugh anymore. Okay, fine. Won't make you laugh anymore. No big stories and Mamish Gemaras. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's murder. You can't look down at this guy and not realize that you're talking about the highest level, the two highest level people. Two people wrote a Mishnah, Bar Kapara, fighting over this issue of the dangers of utilizing something to become just a place for you. It's not amazing. It's amazing. I mean, the Gemara makes a humorous kind of interlude, but obviously it's not humorous. Everything is humorous. It's not meant to be just humor. It's meant to be an insight into the ultimate idea. So the very struggle that we have in understanding Avram is the struggle to understand ourselves, the different levels of the transitions, in ourselves. And accepting the first darga of Maya Fupa Maya, which is the constant struggle to be Eila, to a darga of Yera'eh, and that you're only seen, it's an amazing Gemara, you're only seen on the darga that you've seen. And this is really what the Rambam explains in the Moreh Nevuchah. You cannot be the beneficiary of some type of connection to God, which you're going to call hashgach or anything, if you don't have a mind. The only way in which there's a connection between you is consciousness. If you don't have that consciousness, anything else is game playing, that's all. The supposed Meisashkachas that you see are silly coincidences that have to happen. They mean nothing. The horrible things that happen to good people are not because he was sacrificed for the good of the nation, as the women will tell you at the Shiva. It's because he happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. Why wouldn't it be that? What makes you think he should be Zarek than anything else? Did he have a brain that was aware at that moment? No. So why is he any different than any other animal that's in the wrong place at the wrong time when big human comes along and steps on the ant? What's the difference? It's hard things to hear, but it's the reality. It's the truth. So this interim darga of what it is that it's possible to be a Ben Yisrael and to be zeicha to the overall anhaga of the gadlus and the nisim for Yisrael is Lech. And it comes mamish in terms of the interaction with the Lu Yishma Yechiel Lefanecha. Those are the two poles. And therefore it's not only not a punishment, but it's not even a wonder that we reach at the point where it's finally necessary to get to that last push beyond the transition into the next world of a real level of Akara, that has to come through the interaction with something that lives only Basharu Sham, or something that lives in the total opposite reality of a Kav Maisari Gidli Amal from beginning to end, with full responsibility to every moment of history and every Ummah and every borderline of every Ummah. Amazing, amazing difference and contrast, which is the source and contrast of the Manishtana, the source of freedom on every possible level. And it's a tremendous challenge. It's a tremendous challenge that for the person who's just, because of the reality of life, is driven to discover this because this is the way that he has to live. This is the way that he makes money. This is the way that he's successful in business. This is the way that he can maintain himself as a Jew, like the discovery of this guy in Hungary. This is what life consists of. Fine. So then it emerges when you begin in that world of possible Yisrael. But all of the spoiled brats that walk around thinking about themselves, Yomam Valayla, and need to be able to work out a path, Parshas Lech Lecha provides that path. A way in which you can actually duplicate the things that real interaction with the world lead to, which can lead you back to the real interaction with the world, which ultimately is what happens to Avram Avinu in the next week's parsha. Not an interaction that has to be predicated on the childishness of war and nuclear weapons and technology, but a type of interaction in which real human emergence takes place, in which the level of pure awareness actually has impact on the world, in which your understanding of morality becomes the difference of the power of a civilization, and in which things are measured in real terms by the solidity of the humanity that is within a civilization, which just other things melt before. May we be zocha to see such days for ourselves and for Yisrael. I could talk. I love you.